everybody else, but as I said in Zami, a lot of the times we were finding ourselves in bed with the same white women, right? And it was always a very kind of touchy thing, like you recognized each other, but you didn't hang too close. So there was not the kind of, but always there was the need and the recognition, but there was not the kind of even connection that we have today, that we see today. For instance, the woman who I was going with, woman who I lived with, who was white, the attitude was, hey, well, you know, of course, they're crazy, you know, she's crazy, one of them is crazy, the other one's black. Like we were a little outside the pale.
What happened in the parties you went to, black parties? How were they different from going to the bars?
Oh, honey. First of all, they had good food. First of all, and you have to remember, now we are all of us, we're strong, healthy women, right?
Where did you go to these parties?
And we liked to eat. That's for starters. But the parties, white women's parties, never had food. They had little potato chips, so they had, you know, little dip.
And these parties were really into martinis and canopies.
That's right. And cream
wine,
cheese dips.
Cheese and dips.
Well, black parties always had food.
Where
and
were
that's
these parties?
in Queens. The parties that I went to were given by a group of black lesbians, black gay girls who were a little older than the group I was running with, who had cars, right, and who drove around, and who were like performers. Some of them were in Porgy and Bess, some of them were, you know, different. They were professional women, semi-professional women. They were by and large older, and they had a life. They used to give these parties, and I met one of them, and then, you know, my friends and I used to go.
But then I occasionally came to some top parties downtown, which were, you know, predominantly white. And I might very well be the token, or the second token, or the third token. I also didn't get beyond the third token, it was okay.
And they always looked pretty. And they talked, they didn't move.
No
Everyone
dancing.
sat around and talked. And all you would hear was, but there was no music and nobody moved, you know?
See, I came out of a very political family. Struggle was discussed at the dinner table. You know, our oppression and our freedom was discussed every night at the dinner table. So it was never an issue of me, or when did I start struggling. Now, I struggle against anything. I was one of those people, if a cop is giving somebody a ticket, and I know they not, you know, they wrong, I was the person out there screaming and yelling.
In other words, we need, as a movement encourages you or me or Yvonne to define ourselves, we deal with our similarities, and then we must deal with our differences and the differences that are not being dealt with or provided for. Now, once we deal with those differences that aren't being provided for, we do it in a context that says, hey, then we can use these differences without, we don't have to eradicate them, we don't have to, you know, wipe them out. We also don't have to remain with them. There is a total larger picture, and that's how I see it. In other words, I'm talking about the creative use of difference.